Hello, thanks everybody for attending tonight's meeting of the Development Committee. The meeting is being live streamed and recorded, so if you wish to speak tonight and do speak, you have agreed and given your permission to be recorded. The meeting tonight is simply a listening session for the committee. It's the result of suggestions at our last meeting in March and of conversations with village residents since then. The committee has no other business to conduct tonight other than the listening session. First, some background for those who are just beginning to become informed. Then I'll share some rules of engagement for tonight. The meeting continues to the step-by-step process adopted by the Development Committee since its inception in 2024 at the behest of the Village Council to stay abreast of development in and around the village. With respect to background, some residents are only now becoming aware of county plans to revise the sector plan. Some of these residents may be present here or listening tonight. The committee hopes, regardless of the venue, that you'll leave better informed and increasingly engaged with the development of the new plan. The village and its surrounding areas didn't always look the way they do now. They'll look different a decade from now. Creating that vision is the purpose of the revised sector plan. The sector plan becomes a guide for developers and others. It's a vision for what might be, yet all of what it projects might not be forthcoming. While nothing in the sector plan is binding, zoning changes associated with the plan may be, although we've witnessed changes in even zoning in other communities which may not be consistent with their originally adopted plan. It's premature for the committee to know, and it would be presumptuous of this committee to project how the new village council, to be elected in May, will organize itself to address the sector plan revision process, now being led by the Montgomery County Planning Department and Montgomery County Council. But involved, we hope they and you will be. The county process, as generally outlined by Atara Margulies, the county's lead planner for the revised Friendship Heights sector plan at our last meeting, will involve opportunities for individuals and groups to provide input in various but yet to be announced ways. There's no rush to provide county planners with comments. However, there is reason for the village to begin to hear from as many of you, homeowners, renters, visitors, and business owners, what is important and what should be given priority. The listening session continues that process. We know, too, from Ms. Margulies that village residents and others have already begun to share their thoughts with county planners independently and outside any formal opportunities created by county planners or the village to do so. And that will continue to be the case going forward. It's important to note that the County Planning Department will digest internally all of what it hears, and combined with its own priorities and of other county departments, plans and priorities give emphasis to what it deems important as content for the revised Friendship Heights sector plan. But the final plan will be the result of a political process. Our Montgomery County Council will have to approve it. Our district and at-large members of the Montgomery County Council will be paying attention at sensitive moments in the approval process. County planners, many county departments, and the Montgomery County Council already have lots of ideas for the village and the areas surrounding it. The Development Committee and I have consistently shared these plans with village residents. Visit the Development Committee webpage on the village website where the committee has gathered these materials. The current Friendship Heights sector plan may also be found there, as can a synopsis of the county's timeframes and process for the adoption of a new one. Hopefully that web page or its contents will survive under the auspices of the new council, County planners hope for adoption before 2026 county election. That's ambitious, so we'll see. Consider now the county's priorities in those posted documents for more high-rise developments within half a mile of a metro train station and for more housing. Consider guidelines for pedestrians and bicycle safety, for roads and streetscapes, for development along River Road and Wisconsin Avenue, for land use and open space, for historic preservation and transportation, for noise, air quality, and environmental protection, and for ways to augment village amenities and interaction among village residents, visitors, and neighboring communities and municipalities. Lots of data will also be generated soon to describe us, what we've been, and what we might be. Watch for it. The village's priorities will only be one source of input. Comments and wish lists will be developed by area business alliances, neighborhood groups, and by some surrounding municipal governments. Considerable attention will no doubt be paid to Geico's property. Village officials have met regularly with Geico officials and representatives, most recently a month ago, and have reported to the village council about those meetings. Keep in mind, though, that while Geico's valuable and developable 24 acres abuts the village along Willard Avenue and will be developed now that Geico has announced its relocation to Bethesda, and of course will be of interest to village residents, Geico's property is private property. Geico will influence the development of the new sector plan and development either under the current plan or the revised one. It may be the case, however, that the village's input will be particularly influential for developable property within the village. And there are properties within the village that are still ripe for development and change. Those should receive the attention of the village council and that of village residents too. Among these are the green grassy block in front of 5550 Friendship Boulevard, directly across the street from the village center. The block on Willard Avenue from Chipotle to Potbelly. Willoughby Park. The private homes and property along Shoemaker Lane and North Park Avenue. The frontage along Wisconsin Avenue from Truist Bank to Gap. Willard Avenue Neighborhood Park. The village council, as the representative body elected by the residents of Friendship Heights, should contribute its collective thought and priorities for these areas too, so that they are addressed satisfactorily in the sector plan to the extent that's possible. Tonight's committee listening session is meant to provide what we hope will be more in a continuing process of listening to you. Tonight, this will occur one person at a time. Perhaps a more interactive process will be employed going forward as more is known about the county's own process. It will be helpful tonight, for example, to learn what you like and dislike about the village's current design, about its safety, walkability, or commercial properties, what you'd like to see or not see here in our village and in surrounding areas in the future. This meeting, by design, won't be a back and forth or a question and answer session among the development committee members and you, or among those attending. It isn't a chance to rank or prioritize ideas. That will likely be necessary in the future and require a different type of process. But tonight is an opportunity for us to hear from you, to listen, to obtain your initial thoughts on the record, to begin to formulate our village's own position and priorities outside the county's process. There remains plenty of time for the village and county to reach their respective conclusions about the desired vision and revised plan. Take a look, as you are able, at surrounding communities and their development to see what you like and don't like there. Is it attractive? Is it convenient? Is it how you'd like our village to look? This committee hopes it won't be the last opportunity to listen and ultimately to determine the village council's positions and priorities. We hope your thoughts will begin to inform the next council's decisions and work. After tonight, the next village council, by virtue of its position, will have to determine how it will engage with the county planning department, county planners, and others, including village residents. But the next council will have the benefit of the thoughts you share this evening, and the village council you next elect will likely have opportunities to interact with county officials over the next year and a half. Finally, some rules of engagement for tonight. We hope to adjourn at approximately 8:30, although I'd guess we won't be here that long. Tonight, please be respectful of each speaker's opinions and thoughts, even if you disagree with them. I'll recognize audience members one at a time. If you raise your hand, I'll start in the front of the room over here and then proceed around the back of the room, ending back in the front of the room on this side. And given the number of people who are here, I think there's no need to feel anxious that I won't call on you. If you wish to speak as we proceed around the room, again, raise your hand so I can recognize you. If we've moved on to a different part of the room and you are then moved to share a thought, please be patient until we come back around. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes to assure there's an opportunity for as many people to share their thoughts as possible. A buzzer will go off when you have 30 seconds left, and then again when your time is up. When your time is up, please finish your remarks. When you are recognized, please come to the podium. The microphone is on, and as I mentioned, your comments will be recorded. Please make your statement a statement and not a question. Actually, there aren't many answers about the county's process other than what has been shared in many earlier council and development committee meetings. I'd like to turn to council members Measy and Tyler to see if they have any other comments before I turn to you all. But before I do that, let me thank you, Council Member Measy, and you, Council Member Tyler, for your service to the village and to this committee. It's been a pleasure working with you here. So, Michael, anything? Speak into the microphone. Okay. Okay. Cheryl? Okay. So if you'd like to speak, would you raise your hand? Okay, let's start over here with Mr. Niles.
Hi, everybody. Ken Niles from the Willoughby. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and committee members and guests. I'm about to be the outgoing chairman of the Community Advisory Committee and have spoken before about the proposal that we put forward. Essentially, that proposal is for a community performing arts, culture, and library center, play and park space areas, and a dog park. Now, because of the availability of the Geico property, it just seems like the timing is too coincidental not to be really considered very seriously. I think, having talked with the Terra and Margolis and also been at all of the sessions, and we are now coming up on the visionary period of the sector plan, where we put into place the things in the plan that we'd like to see, recognizing that they're not written in stone, but that they're there as a guide. But it is a fact that if something isn't in the plan, that it will not happen. So it really has to be. So these main parts of the plan that our committee came together, put together, I think are very salient and important aspects of our plan. I think the driving force behind this is that Friendship Heights is really pretty much a bedroom town. You have to go somewhere else if you want to participate in many, many things. We do have some local movies here and things at the center, but I think the idea of having a bona fide Montgomery County Library Center where families can come and, or kids, classes, all of these kinds of things that go on in a traditional library, it just enriches a community tremendously and is a place for people to come and not necessarily just hang out, but to do things that are very productive and involve them. I also want to push things that have been being asked for a long time. That's a dog park and play in park space areas. But I really think the community performing arts would enrich a center with a library, would enrich this area so much and keep people here instead of having to go look other places. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Muller?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Al Muller from the Elizabeth, and I completely agree with the chair of the CAC committee. I see there are other members here. That advisory group, as the chair knows, is composed of about a dozen people from almost all the residential buildings in the village, and it was a diverse group which doesn't always agree on everything, and this was not a consensus decision. It was a unanimous decision to support after the draft went through a few sessions. I support the idea of the library part of this building, but my original thought, and I still would like to re-emphasize that, was a unique amenity which I've seen work in other communities, and that's a community theater. We actually had in this building a long time ago a few of the University of Maryland students come and perform, and it was great fun and well attended. It was outside, but this is not a theater, and if they could have something like a community theater, which when it was not being used as a community theater, could have movies. We have them here, that's true, but it's not a regular movie theater. Community theater really is unique. I've got friends that are involved both in the Alexandria area and also in Florida, and it brings together different people in the productions. It's a multi-generational amenity, and depending on which show they're producing, it brings in the children. But the performers are older people, seniors, as well as young people. And it's an amazing thing that can bring in a lot of talent, including the people behind the stages. And it really is a community effort. It's a wonderful thing. And we have 5,000 people here. We're going to have, I don't know how many people in the new Geico area, in addition to anywhere else, of course, 5,500 that they're starting to build. We're going to have more people, and we will have lots of potential talent, which we already have, but this will be a new outlet. So I definitely hope and share the CAC committee's analysis that this is an amenity, and we also emphasized a lot of other things, streets and parks and undergrounding of the electrical lights, especially on Willard Avenue. But this is a unique amenity, and it would be a great benefit to this community and to the new community. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Sarah?
Good evening, Chris Nauer from Willard Towers. First of all, I want to give a heartfelt thanks for your great service to you, Bobby Pestronk, Cheryl Tyler, Michael Measy, and Mayor White. Thank you so much for all the work that you've done in the past couple of years. We do appreciate it. I wanted to also just say, I'm thinking that this whole sector plan should be on a pause for a bit because there are so many changes in the DC area because of loss of jobs, loss of funding, for many, many things. So I'm not sure that using a sector plan that was generated 6 months, a year ago, is even relevant anymore, because how many developers are going to be building new apartment buildings when people are going to be moving out of the area because they've lost their jobs? So I think that's something that we have to think about. I don't think the sector plan should be rushed at all, because we don't know what this whole community and surrounding area is going to look like in a year. We have no idea what the long-term fallout is going to be from all these cuts to jobs, federal jobs, and to funding of nonprofit and government organizations. So it may not even be feasible a year from now. I do agree with Al Muller about using one of the properties here for a library. I like the idea of a dog park too. I know people have been trying to get that going for years and it hasn't happened. And living in Willard Towers, I think every other person in our building has at least 2 dogs. So I feel so sorry for these poor dogs. Have no place to go except the Geico parking lot. So I hope that we can somehow put a dog park that's not right adjacent to a building that people are living in and hear the barking. But I think that would be a great idea too. So thank you very much, all of you, for your service.
Thank you. Ms. Lovett?
Clara Lovett, the Carlton. I have been a condo owner in the village since 2003, part-time at first, full-time since 2012. I was not here when the 1998 sector plan was produced. I've read it numerous times. And because I worked on the village archives, I was able to follow its development. What I can tell you is that the conditions around us in which planning is taking place and the purpose of the new sector plan are quite different from the previous exercise. In what ways are they different? Number one, for the first time, and maybe, yeah, for the first time in the history of Montgomery County and of the district, the planning boards of the 2 parts of Friendship Heights are working together. The collaboration occurred over a number of years only at the technical level among staff. More recently, however, Montgomery County has created an instrument that is similar, not exactly the same, but similar to the ANCs on the district side. That instrument is the Friendship Heights Urban District, which was appointed by the county government. It is an instrument of the county government in collaboration with DC. And the urban district has an advisory council of 5 people, 3 representing business, and 2 representing condo owners and renters in Friendship Heights. Not in the village, I'm talking about Friendship Heights, the geographical area. So the exercise will be different because the DC government and Montgomery County government share an interest, and that is revitalizing the commercial corridors on Wisconsin Avenue, which is close to us, and on Connecticut Avenue. Difficult to do because we all know what happened to the retail business in the last 20 years, but still doable. And as they look for revitalizing those corridors, they are also thinking about multi-purpose buildings that combine retail and apartments, projects very much like the Matza complex that is almost ready to open. It doesn't have to be high-rise, by the way. Anyway, things that were not in part of the conversation or of the action in 97 or 98 are now occurring. And I think we should all be very aware of how that impacts our situation within the village. Thank you.
Thank you. Come back around the back of the room here. Anybody? Anybody up here? John?
Hi, John Conlow. I live in the Willoughby. I too want to thank everybody for their service, and I was doing a little research.
John, push the mic over in front of your mouth.
Oh, I'm
Be
sorry.
easier. Yeah, thanks.
Doing a little research and looking at the Friendship Heights Urban Design Study, which, as I understand it, was kind of a lead-in to the update of the sector plan that's currently getting underway. And one of the things that the urban design study said very clearly was there's areas for further study, and one of those is even, and I'm quoting now, even with a strong pedestrian network, many stakeholders reported feeling unsafe at various intersections and along certain streets due to lighting, visibility, and vehicle speeds. I think, and I've discussed this with other members of the council and committee members, that I think it's very important that Friendship Heights be proactive, that this area for further study we should pursue. There's issues with pedestrian safety now. It's going to potentially get worse in the future. I believe very strongly that as part of our newly approved capital budget, one of the things that we ought to do is initiate a traffic calming and pedestrian safety study. And I think if we do that, that will allow us to not only address issues of importance to the village today, but have an impact, more of an impact on the sector plan that's currently getting underway. So I hope you'll consider approval of a traffic calming and pedestrian safety plan as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Yes. Don?
I'm Dawn Calabia. I live on Willard Avenue, and I'm secretary of the West Friendship Association. I want to thank you for taking this session. I want to commend the last speaker and double up on the comments that the traffic safety and pedestrian safety is extremely important. And I'm living on Willard Avenue. It's a dark street. It's difficult. The other thing, when the development is approved for the Geico site, we should not allow any more super blocks that cut us off from one another. This area is very difficult to access. It comes out in the urban design study, and the idea of having one large plot without people's ability to cross over to Willard Avenue or to get easily to Wisconsin Avenue, I think is very counterproductive for an urban setting. I also want to urge the construction of sidewalks. If new housing is done, sidewalks are essential. They're essential for safety. They're also essential, particularly for people with disabilities. And one of the most important things you can do for the disabled in your community is have sidewalks. Finally, I'd like to commend that there needs to be more play space. We need a playground. We've been looking at the site opposite where the new bus garage is supposed to be, at the extreme end of that property. And we think that that's a place where a recreational facility, an active ballpark, dog park, those kinds of facilities would make sense, particularly as it's a business area with, if Bloomingdale stays, etc. And finally, we'd like to see Willard Avenue Park refurbished through volunteer labor. The vines have been dug up in the tree and the paths cleared so that you can now see the stream. But we need new benches, we need new markings, and we also need to have a historical and cultural evaluation done of the Blue House on Willard Avenue. We've asked the Parks Department to do that, and we've never gotten an answer. They said at one point that there was cultural value or historical value in the house and architectural value, but that they have not completed any kind of an assessment of that. And we think that that should be added to the register of historically and culturally important places. Willard Avenue Park is a stream park, and we think it should be a quiet recourse for people in our noisy and very difficult and very busy lives. And I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Mr. Calabia?
Mr. Chair, you asked what we like about the area now, and I must admit, I love it. We moved here 30 years ago. I was born actually in Washington, D.C. on North Capitol Street where Sibley Hospital used to be. So I was always a Washingtonian except for years that I lived in New York. We came here in '75 in Chevy Chase, D.C., and my wife, who just spoke, found a wonderful place, and she came running back and said, and it's in D.C. So I said, okay, great. And we loved the single-family house that she found, except it's not in D.C. We're still happy with the place. Some of you have mentioned the idea of a community theater, and maybe movies, a library. I'm all for those kind of things. But only my wife mentioned housing in terms of the Blue House. I'd like to bring up the importance of housing for this area. We're lucky to have Council Member Friedson, who has backed housing proposals and has advocated housing. Many of you know that Montgomery County is bereft of the kind of housing that is more and more needed for people of lesser income than those of you who enjoy the high rises here. And there's such a thing as workforce housing. Workforce housing, in a sense, is misleading. It's some think that it's lower income housing. Actually, it could be housing for people who are maybe of the same income level as the rest of us here, except they work in hospitals or fire departments and that sort of thing. More than that, though, when you look outside of this neighborhood with its 8 high rises, you have to think of other kinds of houses needed for people who we don't see much of. Low-income people, many people of color. That's not very nice to say in this administration, to worry about people of different colors or people like blacks and Latinos, and they can't afford anything here right now, not much anyway. There are kinds of programs that you could have for workforce housing, or even for affordable housing, or programs like that that are have been sponsored by HUD. I don't know how far forward they're going to go. Just the other day in the papers, they're going to demolish the HUD building and try and move everybody out. So that workforce won't be here to advocate for the kind of population that housing place had advocated for in the past 40 or 50 years. So I applaud the idea of a community theater. I applaud movies. I applaud some of the amenities we need in the parks and safer streets. But I want to urge you not to forget that we need housing, and Montgomery County in general needs more housing that's affordable, especially for people of color. And somehow with this open space we now have at Geico, let's hope we can get some multiplexes, well, at least duplexes and triplexes that could eventually make home for the kind of people I'm talking about. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else over here? Is there anyone else? Yes, Ms. Eula.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sandra Eula. I live in the Willard, or the Old Irene, and I've lived here for 31 years, and I work for the planning department for 22 years. So I've said this before, but since this is a formal listening session, I'll just say it again. I think it's very important for us as a community to push our planning department to tell us how they're doing their analysis of the large properties, especially, let's say, Geico. We want to know, and I have asked, and they've tried to answer, but it seemed a little vague to me. We really want to know what is their financial analysis of what can be done on that property, and what is their urban design analysis, and can we work with them collaboratively to generate ideas instead of having them just tell us, oh, you know, it has to be this, or it has to be that, or if we keep part of the building, then we can't do this. We want all that information laid out for us so we can understand and generate a very exciting vision for that whole property. It's a unique, whole, enormous site, and it certainly could have housing, it could be adaptively reused, there could be a park. There's lots of things that could happen, but let's not just accept that, for example, a position that it all has to be torn down. Let's ask them to work with us collaboratively and generate ideas with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others who wish to speak? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Santanu Basu from Highland House West. In terms of wish list, something like a recreation complex will be good, like a tennis courts and stuff like that. That's kind of like one thing I have on mind. And another is that there are not many choices for comfort food, like in Bethesda. So it'd be nice to see more places like Chipotle or Potbelly's in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone who who wishes to speak? Let me see, then, not seeing any hands, whether either Councilman Measy or Councilmember Tyler have any comments or questions.
Excuse me. Let me try this first. I appreciate all the suggestions. I think it's important to remember that there are a number of different actors involved in this process. It's not just the planning board and the sector plan. Sector plan will lay out certain zoning ideas and suggestions and so on. A park or a performing arts center or a library or things of that sort, somebody's got to pay for that. So the other actor involved here is the county council. That is the the sector plan can call for these sorts of things, but who's going to build a performing arts center? Who is going to run the performing arts center? Who's going to finance all that? Planning board doesn't have anything to do with that. That's the county. So the county has to be involved. The county council has to be involved with that sort of thing. In terms of Geico, the other actor involved is the developer who happens to take over the property at some point, whether that's Geico in partnership with a developer or a developer who simply buys the place from Geico. Then there's a negotiation with the developer and the planning people and another set of actors, not just Friendship Heights Village, but surrounding localities, surrounding areas will get involved in that discussion as well. And those discussions can produce ideas that can move us forward. So, for example, the developer can be asked to provide an amenity of some sort in return for the support for their development plan. So you go to the developer, you say, look, we'd like to work with you on this. We will support this type of density if you're willing to build a community theater operation in the middle of what you're doing, or provide a ball field at this particular location, or a dog park here. And it's that type of process that takes place. So what I'm simply trying to say is it's important to talk about the sector plan, but in some respects the sector plan just the beginning of the process. The sector plan will lay out some parameters, and then developers will come forward to make certain proposals, and we need to work with the county to do the sorts of things. Somebody mentioned the Willard Park area down there. The village council, we've been working with the Parks Department, trying to work with the parks people for 4 years to get something done there. Well, it's a lower priority. We don't have the money. We need to spend it here. We need to do that there. I'm not criticizing. Of course, they have a lot of priorities to service, but we could say all we want about Willard Park, the park there, but the county has to make a decision to put the funds into that sort of operation. And that will be the case no matter where we are in regard to what areas we're talking about in regard to development in this area. So just my only point here, say it last time, is the sector plan is important, but it's just the beginning. All the key decisions that we're interested in, the housing decisions, the amenity decisions, the open space decisions, that all takes place after we have a sector plan. Thank you.
Thank you all for your comments, and I've heard a lot of them that I've kind of said myself many times. And to follow up on Councilmember Measy's statement, I wholeheartedly agree with you. It's a lot more to it than just the sector plan, and not to say it's not important, but it's very important for everybody to understand the process. As being the former chair of the Safety Committee, trust me, the concern of Willard Avenue was a major priority, although it's not in the jurisdiction of Friendship Heights. And the village administrator and assistant Jason and Julian and I, fortunately, over the last 2 years, have really, we would say, we really grown to know the people at the Department of Transportation more than anything. They may not have been happy to meet us as much, but we made headways into understanding that road. Working with Montgomery County Police Department, we were able to set up a temporary speed. They don't want to say it was detecting speed, but it was to get an average of what the speeds were. Unfortunately, that device can't stay permanently in anywhere, and it had to leave after a week and a half or 2 weeks. Since that time, for almost 6 months, literally, we've been trying to work with the Department of Transportation to give them a speed camera. We have the money approved, and it's to give it to them. You talk about bureaucracy, we can't even give it away because it has to go through this person and then this department, then it has to come back to the police, then it's got to go back over to DOT, then it's got to go, it's 50 million people, as Mizi is saying. There's more to it than just saying here. So behind the scenes is what has really been going on. We have been working, and we've been trying really hard. I hope the incoming council will continue those relationships and continue to build them. Being a part of the Friendship Alliance and Safety Committee with the business people, we have opened more doors. I hope the next council will continue to open those doors. You have to have, and I said it in the very beginning when we started the Safety Committee, we have to get a seat at the table, and my goal was to have a voice at that table. We finally got a voice, a seat, and got recognized. And we started working with 3 different law enforcement entities that have a major impact, not only on the surrounding areas, but also have an impact on the village itself. And I hope that continues. There were things said about housing, and we all know Montgomery County is going through some tough times of trying to get housing in the areas that are bleak with, which is almost everywhere in Montgomery County. They don't have enough housing, which is not just indicative to Montgomery County. It's everywhere across the country. And we all know the state of Maryland is in a major deficit. Where are they going to make up that money? You and me. That's where they're going to figure out how to make it up. And to Mr. Mizi's point, you can get the sector plan done, but now the real work comes in sitting at that table and letting your voice be heard and heard and heard and heard, that we would like this, but how do we negotiate? That is the key. And if you don't know how to sit and negotiate and plead and, you know, okay, I need 5 acres. Well, we can only give you 3. Okay, if you give me 3, what can we do for you over here? And that is what it's about, and that's what it's going to be about. Housing is the #1 priority in this state and in this county. Multi-dwelling units, as those who have talked about, and as Clara talked about the history of the past sector plan was, and everybody's concerned about Geico, I get it. I'm not really that concerned about Geico because that's a big monster that's going to be going forever. That plan was about townhouses and businesses. That plan isn't going to work now because it's not providing what the mission is, and we need to stay abreast of that, and that is multi-dwelling. We are prime in this village for more multi-dwelling. And as any of those who have come to the meetings, you hear several people say, it's too dense, it's too dark. Well, guess what? It's going to be darker and it's going to be dense. And as I asked the planning representative who was here, and as Councilmember Pestronk stated, the one property that is really prime that got skipped over, but I think it's going to happen this time, is where Miwa down to Chipotle is. They can go up, and that's what they plan to do. I think you're going to see more going up. Now, as someone said, maybe we take a halt. Well, that's a lot of political negotiation when they made promises that they're going to have housing. The type of housing is important. Realize you're going to have housing. Where you're going to have the housing, that's a game of Russian roulette. We've got a lot of vacant spots here. We've got spots that can be redeveloped here. The amenities are great. But we are prime, and I've listened to the planning department say it subtly and directly. Housing and multi-housing is coming here. How much of it, we don't know. And I agree with you. I lived in Manhattan, and everybody said, no, you can't afford to live in Manhattan. Well, Manhattan had a program that they figured out. They needed the police, they needed the doctors, they needed the nurses, and they had to get them into the city. Well, nobody could afford Manhattan's property on an intern's job in a hospital. What did they do? They figured out a tax rebate program, and they worked with a developer, as Mizi said. They worked with the developer, and they worked with the housing department of New York City. They worked with 5 different entities to build that property, and they had police, and I ended up living in that building. I was in federal law enforcement. There were local PD, federal PD, nurses, doctors, EMTs. That's who lived in those 3 high-rise buildings because negotiations were made. So it comes back to the voices of the people saying what they really would like, and probably some suggestions, well, maybe you can work a deal this way. So I get it. You want to have a beautiful art center, that's wonderful. But realize housing is going to be #1 in this community. And I hope you keep up the good work. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Lovett? Sure, please.
I want to actually go back to the topic she talked about, and that is the other thing that makes today different from 97 or 98 are all of the things that are happening in the DMV and in Montgomery County. Unknown quantities for the most part, but we can assume that the impact will not be positive, that there will be shrinking of federal agencies, especially the big ones like NIH. The other thing that is beginning to happen, just beginning, is major investors, not small businesses, but major investors who are building large projects north of here and east of here, where the demand for housing is greater than it is here. Major investors are putting new investments on hold. And I'm not making this up, and I didn't read it in the Washington Post. It comes from, for instance, the general counsel and managing partner of American Real Estate Partners, which is a huge firm that operates in the whole DMV and beyond. They are going forward with projects that were already approved and for which they have financing. But in terms of anything large, new projects, they are on hold. So not necessarily bad for us. It will be bad for addressing the shortage of housing in the county, for sure. But again, these, we focus on things that are local and small scale, and we should. But we should also take into account the larger environment, which is profoundly different from what it was 25 years ago.
Thanks. Mr. Niles? Okay.
Very briefly, talking about the negative times that are impinging on all of us, and particularly our community in the state of Maryland. That is important to consider, but the sector plan is a plan that spans a number of years. I think it's 25 years, and I think that the vision in every respect, not just the visionary period, but I think the sector plan overall really needs to project what we would like to see and, prepare for the worst, but also plan for the best. Because if we don't have it in there, we're not going to get it. And I think that's paramount. It's been said numerous times by the planning people. This period we're in, I hope, and I think most of us here hope, that it's not a permanent situation. I think I'm hopeful that we can turn things around and things will start looking up again. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moody?
I wanted to give a perspective from a minority and a healthcare worker. When you speak of attainable housing or affordable housing or even workforce housing, as far as income levels go, in this area, generally that's targeting an individual that's making around $80,000 a year, which is at the 80% affordability level, with the average income in Montgomery County being about $100,000. As someone who works in a major hospital downtown, I can tell you that the nurses, the physician's assistants, the nurse practitioners, all these people, you think of them as blue collar or pink collar jobs often, outside of the physicians. But everyone in my department makes $100,000 or more a year. And we talk day in and day out about how we can't afford housing. One of my coworkers, her and her husband have a 2-income household. They both make 6 figures, and they share a 1-bedroom with a den in Cleveland Park with their one young son, because that's all any of us can afford. Most of my friends, whether married or single, don't have children. Some of that is because of cost, but also where are you going to house them? All my friends live in apartments and condos. I even have a friend who's a physician who makes $400,000 a year, and she has a 1-bedroom condo in a nice area, but she is bemoaned that she can't afford anything else. And I think that sometimes we lose the fact that housing has increased at such an exponential rate. I've heard people make comments, I bought my house at X age with X income, why can't you? It's because I went to an open house in the town of Chevy Chase on Woodbine Street for a house that was listed for $1.1 million, and it was unlivable, absolutely unlivable. The ceilings were falling down, the walls were caving in, the floors had holes in them, and they were confident they were going to sell it in the next week or two. A developer said if they preserved the house, they could probably put in $900,000. And you think about what's available to us if you want to live in a decent area, and these uninhabitable houses that if you can come up with the money, you have to then double it to renovate. You also have to think, if you don't have children, if you're not married, where we know Generation Z and millennials, we're not getting married, we're not partnering off for a myriad of reasons. A lot of that is cost. We can't afford houses, we can't afford kids, we can't afford to be in a couple, so you don't need a single family home. And so the reason why governments, not just DC and Montgomery County, but across the nation, these major metropolitan areas are wanting to build more apartments and townhouses, it's because their populations don't need single family homes. My friends don't talk about wanting a single family home. Some want a townhouse, but most people want a nice condo, a nice apartment in a nice area. So it's about building for the need. It's also about being able to extract as much tax revenue as you can from minimal investments. And so they have studies, I'm not going to misquote the numbers, but the development that's happened in downtown Bethesda, they're getting X amount of millions more dollars from tax revenue than what they have to spend on infrastructure, because if you build up, you don't need more streets, you don't need more sewers, you don't need more street lights. You build up and not out. And so I think that that's coming to this area. I think we should welcome it because it's what's needed for the people coming from behind us. And it's also what is sustainable for our county and this area. I'll quickly try to wrap up, but the reason why places like California and New York and increasingly Maryland and DC are losing population is because these people are moving to places like Florida and Texas because that's what they can afford. The reason why Virginia is becoming a bluer state, still purple, is because people from more liberal areas have moved there. It's the same for Georgia. It's because the places that people really want to be, they can't afford to live. And I've even had conversations with friends and batted around the idea myself as a native Washingtonian of moving elsewhere because it's just insurmountable here. And I'm a high-income professional with 4 degrees. So just imagine how insurmountable this is for so many other people. So I would hope that people have their hearts and minds open to what may be coming because it's really what we need.
Thank you. Yes, Council Member Tyler.
To back up Cameron's comment, I don't know if any of you saw the recent story. I think it was on the news this weekend. They talked about housing in the DMV area. Houses are now sitting longer, and the average rental rate is now going down, and the average rate in the tri-area is $2,300, a little over $2,300 a month. The average mortgage is a little over $3,800 a month. Now, they didn't say what size that was, but those are the average prices. So they're also seeing, because of what we said on the other side, is that people are losing their jobs. So a lot of buildings are vacant now. People are doubling up, but people still need housing. People have to come back to DC if they want their job because they left during COVID to go work in a less expensive environment. However, houses are sitting and they're not moving. And there are very few houses. And as Cameron said, in this area, it's $1 million, and what you're doing is buying the land. That's it. And most young people and some older people cannot afford to pay $1 million to buy a piece of land and then have to put up another $1 million to go build what you want. So yes, housing is coming, and I think you're going to see the rents stabilize around $2,200, $2,300, $2,400. But that's like going to be it.
Share our experience with the 5500 project as it was going, as we were working with Donahoe to get that approved and going back and forth. I can't, Al may remember how many times we tried to find out what the actual average rent was going to be in that building, and we got answers that didn't make any sense. They claimed that they were going to make 15% of the building of the units affordable, and that allowed them to build an extra 2 stories, I think, on the building. But then we asked what affordable meant, and it wasn't entirely clear what affordable meant. To Cameron's point, and if the developer starts building housing, which I'm sure they will on the Geico site at some point, which they need to do, it's going to be a battle to say the county is going to have to get involved in saying, these units have to be affordable. There has to be some public subsidy for some of these things so that the units can be affordable. Because look, the developers are not philanthropists. They're there to make money, and they're not there. They're there to build apartments that can generate funds for them and for their investors. And without the county taking very strong action, I worry that we're not going to end up with the affordable houses that will keep people like Cameron and his friends and others in our neighborhood. So that's another part of this process.
If there are no other comments, then let me thank you all for being here tonight, and look forward to continued conversations as a civilian with many of you, if not all of you. Thanks very much to those who are streaming tonight as well. Good night.